One night, three thieves came into the house and stole a lot of money. The thieves put all the money in a bag and ran to the forest. After some time, the three thieves felt very hungry. One of them went to a nearby village to buy some food. The other two waited in the forest to take care of the stolen money. The thief who went to buy the food had an evil idea. He first went and had his food at a hotel. Then he bought food for his other friends. He mixed some strong poison in the food. He thought that his friends would have the poisonous food and die, and he alone will have all the money. Meanwhile, the two friends who waited in the forest decided to kill their friend when he returned, so that only the two of them could share all the money. When the thief returned with the food, the other two friends hit him and killed him. Later on, they had the poisonous food and themselves died.
My dear students, what do you think is the moral of the story? Yes, the moral of the story is, if you try to harm others, you yourself will be harmed in turn. If you try to do some evil to others, the evil will take place with you. If you try to deceive others, if you try to cheat others, you yourself will be deceived, you yourself will be cheated in turn. The outward agency, the outward elements are not responsible for your own downfall. The outward agency is not responsible for the evil that takes place with you, for the bad that happens with you. It is you yourself only that is responsible for your own downfall. It is you yourself only that is responsible whatever bad happens, whatever evil happens with you. And this is called as the tragic flaw, our own fault. And with this idea, we are going to deal with a new poem in this video, and we are going to study poem number 3 from the textbook of 12th standard, and the title of the poem is The Inchcape Rock. The Inchcape Rock, this poem is written by Robert Southey. But before going to study the poem, let's have a short introduction to the poet. Robert Southey was born at Bristol in England, and he was born in 1774 and he passed away in 1843. He was a very famous poet, historian, biographer, as well as an essayist also, and he belonged to a great movement in the history of English literature, and that movement is known as Romanticism. He belonged to that period, and he had been a poet laureate of England since 1813 to 1843. Some of the notable poems are The Scholar, The Battle of Blenheim, Bishop Hatto, and The Inchcape Rock. Sonnet, ode, epic, elegy, lyric, these are some of the important types of poetry. And one of the important types of poetry is a ballad. In Marathi, it is called as poetic. Students, you must be remembering a very famous poetic, a very famous ballad about the great Maratha warrior Tanaji Malusari. You must be remembering the Shahir who tells the story in the form of song. You must be remembering the chorus that accompany that Shahir. You must be remembering the dance, the repetition of some lines, and they are the singing chorus in accompany with some musical instruments. So these are some of the characteristic features of a ballad. You must remember that ballad for the better understanding of the characteristic features of a ballad. Here we will study some of the features in short. First of all, it is a song. Ballad is a song and it tells a story. It narrates a story of some person. The beginning is often surprising. The beginning of the ballad is surprising and it concentrates, it is about or it deals with a single episode, a single event that takes place in the life of a particular person. The theme is often tragic and sad. The theme is often tragic and sad, and many times the story is told of the valor, of the deeds of courage of that particular hero. The story is told through dialogues and actions. Another feature of ballad is some ballads have a refrain, means a repetition of some lines or a repeated chorus. The stanzas are generally short. The stanzas are generally short. The present poem, The Inchcape Rock, is also a ballad and it has the stanzas of 4 lines, means there are quatrains, 17 quatrains are there in this poem. Then traditionally a ballad is considered as a folkloric verse and it is associated with the communal dancing. Students, here it is very important to understand some of the terms that are given here for the better understanding of the poem, and these terms are related to our poem. The first important term is poetic justice. Poetic justice is a literary device, is a literary term in which virtue is ultimately rewarded or vice is punished. Often in modern literature by an ironic twist of fate intimately related to the character's own conduct. In simple words, poetic justice means ultimately, means in the end, virtue means good is rewarded, and evil means bad is punished. And for this, the conduct, the behavior of the person is responsible. That person himself is responsible for the reward or for the punishment. That is called as poetic justice. Means if you do something good, you will be rewarded good. If you do something evil, you will be punished. Another term is supernatural element. Supernatural element is one of the key features, one of the main features of romantic poetry. The use of supernatural or use of supernaturalism is one of the key features of romantic poetry, and as I told you, Robert Southey is also one of the romantic poets. Supernatural element is anything which stands apart from the natural law of the universe. Anything that is not or that is not real, that does not take place in our practical life, that is apart from, that is different from our natural life, that is called as supernatural element. The agents, the elements like magic, miracles, souls, spirits, ghosts, angels and demons, these are some of the elements of supernaturalism. These are some of the supernatural elements, and the poets, the dramatists use supernatural elements in their poems or dramas. And one of the famous poets, S.T. Coleridge, made an extensive use of supernaturalism in his poetry. His poems like Kubla Khan and The Rime of the Ancient Mariner are very famous for supernaturalism. The given proverbs, for example, as you sow, so shall you reap, crime gets its own punishment, what goes around comes around, tit for tat, evil digs a pit for others but falls into the same. All these terms, all these proverbs have one common meaning, that is, if you do good, you will get good. If you do bad, if you do evil, you will get the punishment for that. The bad will be received by you. It means that as you sow, so shall you reap. As you do, you will get the result as you did earlier. If your deeds are good, if your acts are good, the results will be good. And if your acts are bad, if your deeds are bad, you will get the punishment for that. This is a buoy bell. Buoy means a floating object that is anchored in the sea to mark dangerous places. An object, a thing that floats on the surface of seawater. And this buoy is tied, this buoy is anchored with the help of chain to the rock that is hidden a few inches under the water. That is there not so deep in the water, but just a few inches under the seawater. And a bell is fixed to this buoy. When the tides take place, this dangerous rock will be hidden under the water. But the seafarers, the shipmen, will not be able to guess the exact location of this rock. And the accidents will take place, the shipwrecks can take place. And to save such shipwrecks, to save the accidents, a buoy bell is placed, a buoy bell is fixed on this rock. And when the movements of the waves are there, at that time the buoy bell also moves and the ringing sound will be produced. The ringing sound, the bell rings and it will warn the seafarers, it will be the warning to the shipmen that the dangerous rock is here, and so the shipmen can be saved from the accidents. The title of the poem is The Inchcape Rock. Inchcape is a reef. It is a rock and it is called as Bell Rock also. It is 11 miles or 18 kilometers away from the east coast of Angus in Scotland. And there is a story, there is a legend about this rock. Many accidents, many shipwrecks used to take place because of this dangerous, perilous rock. And when the good monk, Abbot of Aberbrothock, saw this, he fixed a buoy bell on this rock. But the bad-natured sea robber, a pirate, removed this bell and his ship himself got crashed. And our poet Robert Southey got inspired from this legend and he wrote the present poem, The Inchcape Rock. Now at this place there is a Bell Rock lighthouse and it was built on the Inchcape Reef in the early 19th century and it is named after the legend of the good abbot's bell. The two important characters of the poem are Abbot of Aberbrothock and Ralph the Rover. Abbot of the Aberbrothock is the head of the Abbey of Monks. Abbey means the living place where the monks live, that is called as Abbey. He is a benevolent person and his nature is the helping nature. He is a big-hearted, kind-hearted person, selfless person, and he is always ready to help others. And because of his helping nature, he placed the buoy bell on that perilous, dangerous rock. Then another character is Ralph the Rover. Ralph is a sea pirate or a sea robber, and he loots the ships, and he is a jealous person. He gets jealous when the abbot places the bell on the Inchcape Rock. He has the wicked nature. He is of the wicked nature and evil person. Envious person. He always hates others and greedy person. He is adventurous also. He dares to remove the bell and he dares to rob the ships, and he is a risk taker also. The poem The Inchcape Rock is a ballad. We already discussed what is meant by the ballad, and it has 17 stanzas. Every stanza is having 4 lines, and the stanza which has 4 lines is called as a quatrain. There are 17 quatrains, and it's a descriptive and narrative poem. It narrates the story, it describes some of the beautiful scenes, and it also narrates the story of The Good Abbot of Aberbrothock and Ralph the Rover. It's a didactic poem. It teaches some moral. It gives some moral at the end of the poem. Rhyming scheme of the poem is AABB, and some of the figures of speech used in this poem are alliteration, metaphor, personification, onomatopoeia, and etc. As well as this poem uses a number of archaic words, a number of old words, old English words that are joins, quoth, methinks, canst, hath, and cursed. And some of the important themes of the poem are poetic justice. Poetic justice, it is one of the important themes of the poem. Poetic justice, we have already discussed about it, what is meant by the poetic justice. And here in this poem, Ralph is punished in the end. Ralph, the rover who removes the bell, is punished in the end. The evil gets the punishment in the end, and this is called as poetic justice. Crime and punishment. Ralph does the crime and he gets the punishment in this poem in the end. Another theme of the poem is, as you sow, so shall you reap. If you sow good things, if you sow something beneficial, then you will reap good things only. If you do something bad, if you do something or sow something evil, you will reap evil only. You will get bad only. So this also is one of the important themes of the poem. And at last, virtue versus vice. Virtue means good, vice means bad. Virtue means good quality, vice means bad quality. The abbot is the symbol of virtue, and Ralph the rover in this poem is the symbol of vice. So this also can be one of the important themes of the poem. Now let's turn to the poem. I will try to explain and analyze each and every line of the poem. I told you the title of the poem is The Inchcape Rock and written by Robert Southey. No stir in the air, no stir in the sea, the ship was still as she could be. Her sails from heaven received no motion, her keel was steady in the ocean. In the very first stanza, the poet describes the calmness of the sea. The sea was calm, there was no movement in the water of the sea. The no stir in the air, stir means movement. In the air, there was no movement. In the sea, there was no movement. The ship also was still. Still means calm. Her sails from the heaven received no motion. The sails of the ship means, as shown in the picture, the sails are made of the cloth and used to move the ship. With the help of wind, the ship is moved with the help of sails. The sails also were still, means there was no movement in the air, and that's why the sails were also still. The boat also was still, the water also was still, and the air also was still, means calm. Her keel was steady in the ocean. Keel means the bottom part of the ship, that also was not moving. As ship was not moving, the keel also was not moving. It means that in the first stanza, the poet describes the calm sea. Without either sign or sound of their shock, the waves flowed over the Inchcape Rock. So little they rose, so little they fell, they did not move the Inchcape Bell. In this stanza, the poet describes the mild sea waves. There was a very little movement in the water of the sea. The waves were not moving violently. The waves also were not moving violently without making any sound. Without making any sound, the water flowed over the Inchcape Rock very silently. The layer of water flowed very silently over the Inchcape Rock. The waves, so little they rose and so little they fell, means there was not much of the rising and falling in the waves of the sea. They did not move the Inchcape Bell. It means that the bell also was not moving because the water was silent. There were no waves, and that's why the buoy which had been placed by Abbot also was not swinging, and because of that, the bell also was not making any kind of sound, or it was not moving also. The abbot of Aberbrothock had placed that bell on the Inchcape Rock. On a buoy in the storm it floated and swung, and over the waves its warning rung. This stanza describes the good abbot, the good Aberbrothock, and the bell. Abbot means the monk. Abbot means the monk, the head of abbey of monks. Abbey means a building or a place where the monks and nuns live. That is called as abbey, and the head of abbey is abbot. The abbot of Aberbrothock was a good person, a kind-natured man, and perhaps he must have seen the shipwrecks, and that's why he placed a buoy, and on that buoy he fixed a bell, a buoy bell. That is called as a buoy bell. He placed a buoy bell there, and whenever there were some huge waves because of the tide or because of the storm, whenever there was a violent movement in the water of the sea, at that time that buoy means a floating object that floats on the surface of the water, and to that buoy a bell is fixed. That is called as buoy. Whenever that buoy swung, at that time the bell also swung, and because of that swinging, the bell rang. The bell produced ringing sound, and whenever such sound was produced, at that time the seafarers, the shipmen, became alert of the hidden rock, and because of that they could save their lives. Because of that they could save shipwrecks. When the rock was hid by the surges swell, whenever there was rise in the level of the water, and whenever that rock was hidden under the water, the mariners heard the warning bell. But at this time the bell was there, which had been fixed by the abbot, and the bell rang. And whenever the bell rang, and then they knew the perilous rock, means the ringing of the bell was the warning for the seafarers, and they came to know that there is a perilous, very dangerous Inchcape Rock, and that's why they blessed the abbot of Aberbrothock. It means that they could save themselves because of the warning bell. They could save the shipwreck, or they saved their life because of the warning bell. And who had placed that warning bell? The abbot of Aberbrothock. And that's why they blessed that wise man, they blessed that wise monk for saving their lives. The sun in the heaven was shining gay, all things were joyful on that day. The seabirds screamed as they wheeled around, and there was joyance in their sound. This is the scene as we can see in Hindi movie. A joyful scene before happening of something evil. It means that this is the joyful scene, and after that something evil, something bad is going to take place. And such kind of scenes we have seen in Hindi movies. In the same way, here also the sun, the poet describes the cheerful atmosphere, the joyful atmosphere. The sun was shining happily. Gay means happy. The sun was shining happily in the sky, and all the things were looking to be very happy. The seabirds screamed and they wheeled around. The seabirds cried, they made sound, happy sound, and they whirled, or they were flying in the sky, and there was joyance in their sound. The seabirds also were showing happiness through their sound, through their shouting, through their screams. The buoy of the Inchcape Bell was seen, a darker speck on the ocean green. Sir Ralph the rover walked his deck and fixed his eye on the darker speck. Here in this stanza, the new character, another character, has been introduced by the poet. And the name of that character is Sir Ralph the rover. And he is a sea pirate. He is a robber. And he stands on the deck of the ship, and he looks at the distant Inchcape Bell. He looks at the bell, and to his eyes it seems to be a tiny darker spot. Actually, the bell had been the symbol of guide. The bell had been very useful for the other shipmen or for other seafarers, but for the eyes of Ralph, that seems as if it is a darker speck, a darker tiny dot. He felt the cheering power of spring. It made him whistle. It made him sing. His heart was mirthful to excess, but the rover's mirth was wickedness. When he looked at that bell, he might have got some plans in his mind. And as the plans were there, his attitude changed. He was feeling as if he is singing. The cheering power of spring, as if spring means the symbol of something happiness. And spring is the season of happiness, and he felt the power of spring, means he became so happy. And he whistled, means he felt as if he is whistling and made him to sing. He whistled, he sang, and his heart was so mirthful. Mirthful means happy. He became so happy. Why? Because he had a plan in his mind. He wanted to do something that Inchcape bell. But his mirth was not good mirth. His happiness was not a good happiness. Actually, it was a wicked mirth. It was a wicked joy. It was a evil joy. It was an evil joy. His eye was on the Inchcape float. Quoth he, my men, put out the boat and row me to the Inchcape Rock, and I will plague the abbot of Aberbrothock. In this stanza, the poet describes the desire that he speaks to the desire of Ralph that he speaks to his men. He orders his men to put out the boat and take me and row me to the Inchcape bell. And he tells them that I will teach a lesson to the abbot of Aberbrothock. I will plague means cause pain or trouble. I will cause a lot of pain and trouble to Aberbrothock because I am going to cut down this bell now. He had seen that people or the other seafarers or shipmen used to praise and bless the abbot of Aberbrothock because he did good work. He saved the lives and he saved the ships, and that's why those people blessed him. His fame was increasing day by day. But this jealous Ralph the rover decides something other, and he decides, due to their jealousy, he decides to cut down the Inchcape bell. The boat is lowered, the boatmen row, and to the Inchcape Rock they go. Sir Ralph bent over from the boat and he cut the bell from Inchcape float. This stanza describes Ralph's boat to the Inchcape Rock. He had ordered, and the men followed his order. They took out the boat and they rowed Ralph to the Inchcape bell. They took Ralph to the Inchcape bell, and Ralph bowed and cut down the Inchcape bell. Down sang the bell with a gurgling sound. The bubbles rose and burst around. Quoth Sir Ralph, the next who comes to the rock, on to bless the abbot of Aberbrothock. In the earlier stanza, we saw the Ralph the rover cuts down the bell, and this stanza describes the sinking of the bell. As soon as he cuts down the bell starts sinking. The bell starts going under the water, and while going under the water, it made a gurgling sound. Gurgling is a sound word of the sinking bird, and sound is expressed. It means that here the figure of speech is onomatopoeia. And while sinking down, the bubbles also rose in large number, and they burst also, they broke also. Ralph said, the next who comes to the rock won't bless the abbot of Aberbrothock. Here Ralph became so happy, And he said that whenever any other person will come now in future, he will not bless the abbot. Why? Because there is no bell now, and definitely the shipwrecks are going to take place, or the ships are going to crash, going to dash to that dangerous rock, that is the Inchcape Rock. Sir Ralph the rover sailed away, he scoured the seas for many a day, and now grown rich with plundered wealth, he steers his course for Scotland's shore. In the earlier stanza we saw that he cut down well, and he became so happy because his aim was going to be fulfilled now. His plans were going to be fulfilled now. And after cutting down the bell, he became happy and he sailed away. He went away and he scored a lot, means he traveled a lot in the sea. And he looted many ships. Whenever the shipwrecks took place because of the Inchcape Rock, whenever the ships dashed and crashed because of the Inchcape Rock, he got the opportunity and he looted those ships and he became rich now. He collected a lot of wealth, and after collecting a lot of wealth, he decided to go to the shore of the Scotland. It means that he decided to go Scotland, and he steered his course, means he moved his ship towards the shore of Scotland. So thick a haze overspreads the sky, they cannot see the sun on high. The wind hath blown a gale all day, at night it hath died away. In the beginning part of the poem, we saw the cheerful atmosphere, but now the atmosphere has changed suddenly, as if the supernatural element has entered the scene. When Ralph the rover orders his men to move their ship to the shore of Scotland, at that time they start facing difficulties. And one of the difficulties is haze, means the mist, the fog. The atmosphere, the skies were filled with fog. The atmosphere, the skies were filled with haze, the mist. They cannot see the sun also, means the light also disappeared. They could not see the light also. The wind hath blown a gale all day. Gale means strong wind. Strong winds were blowing all the day, and at evening it hath died away. Hath means has. It disappeared. The wind stopped. The wind stopped blowing. On the deck the rover takes his stand. So dark it is they see no land. Quoth Sir Ralph, it will be lighter soon, for there is the dawn of the rising moon. In this stanza also the difficulties continue. In this stanza also the gloomy atmosphere continue. And perhaps Ralph sees the men are frightening. They are having a kind of fear, and that's why to encourage them he stands on the deck of the ship and he motivates them, he inspires them and tells them that though now we are not able to see any kind of light, don't worry, after some it will be lighter soon. It will be brighter because the dawn of the rising moon will be there, means the moon will appear and we can see the light there. Canst hear, said one, the breakers roar? For methinks we should be near the shore. Now where we are I cannot tell, but I wish we could hear the Inchcape bell. Here one of the men of Ralph expresses his fear, and he asks his fellow men if they could hear something. And he tells them that I am able to listen, I am able to hear the breaking waves, the breaking sound of the waves. And hence I can assure you, I can tell you that we are near the shore. But still there is a doubt. They are not able to say anything. So he still says that I don't know where we are. And at this point they remember the Inchcape bell. They think if the bell had been there, they would have easily found their way to the shore. But they had already cut down the bell. There is no bell. And another fear is there, that they think if they are near the shore, they may be near the Inchcape Rock. And there is a fear in their mind that their ship may get crashed. They may hit their ship to the Inchcape Rock because they are not able to see anything, and they are not able to listen the ringing sound of the Inchcape bell also. So here in this stanza, they express the feeling of regret. They hear no sound, the swell is strong, though the wind hath fallen, they drift along, till the vessel strikes with a shivering shock. O Christ, it is the Inchcape Rock. In this stanza, we come to know that there was no wind. The storm was not there. Some waves might be there, some waves were there, but in this dark night, they were unable to see anything. And even though Ralph and his men were moving ahead, and at last their ship dashes. Their ship gets crashed. Their ship strikes to the Inchcape Rock, and they realize, they feel shocked, and they shout, "Oh Christ, it is the Inchcape Rock." They remember God in such situation. In the crisis, they remember Christ, but Christ cannot do anything now. Christ will help them who repent on their deeds. Christ forgives them who repent on their deeds. Ralph never repented. He cut down the bell. He never repented. And here in this situation, even Christ will not forgive him. So Ralph the rover tore his hair. He cursed himself in his despair. The waves rush in on every side. The ship is sinking beneath the tide. In this stanza, we see the feeling of regret of Sir Ralph. He repents. He curses himself. He blames himself because he himself had cut down the bell. He himself had dug the pit, and now he himself had fallen into it. Sir Ralph the rover tore his hair, means he became so disappointed, and he starts cursing himself. He starts abusing himself. He gets so annoyed. The waves, means the water, enter the ship from all sides, and at last the ship sank down, drowned into the water. But even in his dying fear, one dreadful sound could the rover hear, a sound as if with the Inchcape bell the devil below was ringing his knell. Knell means the sound of a bell rung solemnly after death or at funeral announcement of death. Here in the last stanza, we see a very bad death of an evil person, Ralph the rover. We see Ralph, the evil person who prepared the pit for others, has fallen into the pit himself. The evil person who always cheated others, who always looted others, has been looted himself. And the person who thought to do evil to good person like Abbot of Aberbrothock, now the evil has taken place with himself. And when he was drowning into the water, sinking in the water, at that time also he could hear one sound, and that sound was the sound of the Inchcape bell. The sound of Inchcape bell haunted his mind. The haunting sound he felt, the haunting sound of the Inchcape bell, he felt as if it is the sound of the knell of devil, or it is the sound of devil's knell. So friends, I hope that you have understood the poem. In the next video, we will deal with another poem. Until then, bye.